I know what you're probably thinking, because I'm thinking it too. This has to be a prank, right? But it's true, you guys. After a long year plus of searching and interviewing and hitting walls and failing and getting rejections, I've accepted a new job offer and I'm starting a new job next week when you're watching this. I'm so excited. After many no's, I got a yes. And not only is it like, oh, finally someone said yes to her, it is beyond perfect. The next step, I honestly couldn't have designed this role better. I mean, we'll get there. There's a lot of details and moving parts and changes with it, but this role is so good for what I want to do in the future and such a good fit, and I'm just so excited about it, and I feel so confident stepping into this next step. So I'm going to be a policy analyst and working in a research institute based in DC to help their research and also amplify it to policymakers and be the connector that kind of brings their research and their recommendations into translating it to policymakers. On October 30th, which I think this is gonna go up about a week before I start. This has been in the works for a few weeks and I just, again, wanted to hold off on saying anything. But I was so flippin' excited when I got the offer letter. I was actually stunned, you guys. Like, I think I misread it and I was about to email them and be like, are you sure that you sent this to the right person? Wanted to make sure it was signed, sealed, delivered. So I guess I'll rewind a little bit. So this job, I did vlog when I was doing an interview for them. One of the times that I talked to them, and that's the only thing I said. I didn't say what it was. A little bit of backstory if you are just stumbling upon this. I've worked in kind of like public sector NGOs space for the last couple of years doing UN facing advocacy, so kind of linking research and activists to translate their recommendations into policy, have meetings with policymakers, pull together events to elevate those voices and try and influence policies in like peace and conflict situations. I don't want to give away too much is the thing, so I hope it like makes sense more in the abstract, but essentially I worked on like 3 main thematic priorities, I would say, and in my last role I really tried to bring together 2 of them and highlight like intersections of why it's important to focus on both of them in the same context. I organized an event about how this sort of dimension was important to look at in this issue also, and just how they intersect. And something I've always wanted to do in my work is kind of like highlight synergies, why certain issues impact one another and aren't just like completely separate things that should be siloed off into separate discussions. What I'm excited about with this particular role is it combines 2 of those issue areas that I worked on previously that I had tried to intersect and worked on trying to kind of like bring the synergies together where I could in my work. It is a role that does just that. It focuses on those 2 things and the importance of why they should be looked at together and intersectionally. But also my job search, like I have zoomed out a lot and I have been looking at like working in NGOs in New York still and working on this general set of issues and thematic priorities that I have in the past, because that's what I have experience in, but also I've looked more broadly and I've been open to other things. End of August, beginning of September, I was in maybe the lowest place I've been in the past year, which says a lot because I've definitely had some low lows, some of which I've shared on camera. But this one I just didn't even talk about really. I had a feeling of this depressive episode where there were a few days where I just could not motivate myself to do anything. I just felt like there was no point. I just felt like I was very far away from any potential opportunity that was ever gonna work. One thing that people maybe don't talk about as much with job searching is there's like 2 sides of it. There's the one side where you have opportunities in the pipeline, you have interviews lined up, you're in a couple different processes, or you even just like found a listing that you're so excited about that you've applied to and you're waiting to hear back. When you have that like looking forward to the opportunity, hopeful aspect of it, excited about what's to come. Sure, you're not guaranteed it, but like there's something in the pipeline. That's one side of it, which comes with its own anxieties and challenges. But I think the other side is when you get rejected from the last thing that you were previously interviewing for and you don't have another thing in the pipeline that you're excited about, and you're just like, when is this gonna end? And I really don't want to make this like a sob fest about me. We're trying to focus on the good. But this is where I was coming into this situation. So I wrote a journal entry on September 5th, how I just felt like I was not gonna get out of this and I was in a well and it was just so blah, blah, blah. That was September 5th. September 7th, I applied to this job. And I had been considering looking at other opportunities. I talked about it on YouTube over the summer, especially August, end of summer. Like I really had this feeling deep in my gut that I wasn't going to be here in New York next year. And I was definitely seeing myself somewhere else. And I was even entertaining the idea of like, maybe I should just completely give up on this path and move back to the West Coast and try and become a writer. Like I was looking at any possible scenario of just wanting to move forward again and change paths if that meant just getting out of this feeling of stagnancy. I started applying to things again that weren't based in New York City, which was kind of my focus before. And finally, I was like, you know what, fine. I'm gonna apply to things that are in DC and in other places, and I was gonna take the foreign service test and even like go abroad, whatever. I did talk about taking the foreign service test in my videos. Also, you might have noticed if you've been following me, I just kind of stopped talking about it because I got this job, so I didn't end up taking the test. And this role is brand new. I'm the first person to have it. It didn't exist a year ago when I first started applying, when I've been going through most of this process. It didn't exist even 6 months ago. It just popped up over the summer and I didn't apply for it until it had been up and they were looking for someone for, I think, 2 months. So a lot of the work that I'm gonna do is still gonna focus on the UN, which is what I have experience in, what I love doing, and why I was so hyper focused on staying in New York, because that's where I saw a lot of the UN opportunities. But I'll also get to widen that a little bit and do more US government advocacy, private sector, civil society, bringing in just like a whole range of different actors and kind of broaden my skill set a little bit that way, but still apply everything that I've done in the past, which is just such an amazing opportunity. So I was in kind of a rough spot beginning of September. I had seen this posting, but I just had it. It wasn't the kind of thing where I immediately jumped on it and I was like, oh, this is perfect for me. It was the kind of thing where I looked at it and I was like, oh, they're definitely gonna want someone who's like more experienced, more talented, has more of a research background, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of did the thing where I just didn't think that I was gonna be good enough for it. So I bookmarked it and I was like, yeah, maybe I'll do this. And then I was like, just kind of doubting myself in the process. Finally, when I kind of got through those few days where I was just feeling really low, I was like, you know what, F it. Like, I'm just gonna apply, I don't care. I'm just gonna start like throwing things at every wall and, you know, you never try, you never know kind of thing. And I didn't expect to hear from them. Honestly, the posting had been up for 2 months. Like they had started looking for someone at the beginning of July. And so I was like, they probably even already found someone and they just haven't taken this down yet, but whatever, I'm just gonna apply. I applied 2 days after I had written this journal entry. And then a week later, I got an email saying that they were really impressed with my background and they wanted to interview me. And I was like, okay. And I was like, this is gonna be really hard. Like, these are really brilliant, smart people. They're like PhDs who work at this research institute and have great publications and like really well regarded, all this stuff. And I was like, I'm definitely not gonna be smart enough or, you know, accomplished enough or whatever. Last week of September, I think, I had this interview and they were so incredibly nice. The interview went so well. Everything that I had been concerned about just kind of like went away. I had gone into it thinking that they wanted a researcher, like an academic PhD, I don't know. And so I expressed that. I was like, how much of this role is research versus policy advocacy? Because that's like my bread and butter. And they were like, well, we advertised it and it is on the research team, but in actuality, we have a researcher and we want this person to do more of the policy translation for them. And I was like, oh, that's perfect because I have some research background, but mostly this experience. And so, I don't know, we just had such a great conversation. I felt good about it. And then at the end of it, they were like, okay, well, we have some other first round interviews and we'll then do another round. And then we'll let you know in the next week or two or something. And so I was like, okay, sure. And then I was emailing them a thank you after and they asked for my writing samples and references. So I sent those to them. I figured that they just were taking references from everyone they were interviewing and then they would actually contact them. after the second interview if they wanted to hire them. And so 2 weeks went by and I was kind of like, well, they said a week or two, and I always want to be, you know, generous and things take time. I know that. So I didn't want to be annoying or rush them or anything. But I just gently followed up 2 weeks later. I'd been contacted for another interview for a different position in the meantime. And so I just said in my email, like, hi, hope you're doing well in consideration of other roles that I'm interviewing for. Hadn't even had the interview yet, but you know, wondering when I could expect to hear an update from you in your process. Because at that point, 2 weeks had gone by, I legitimately, like, I had been so used to just being rejected that I thought that they had already eliminated me and that they just hadn't said anything yet, and I kind of just wanted to know so then I could move on and focus on the other role. And she responded immediately. She's like, oh, hi, thanks so much for checking in. We actually just spoke to your second reference this morning and we'll be in touch with you soon. And I was like, what? I thought that you were gonna do another interview and then do the references, which they never said that explicitly. I kind of had just assumed. But I was like, oh, that's so weird that they, you know, would check my references before a second interview. Like, I would think that they would want to save that for the last step, but whatever. On Tuesday, I was sitting down to eat lunch. My laptop was open, living my life, not really expecting anything. I thought maybe later in the week I would hear to schedule a second interview. An email pops up while I'm like mid-bite, and it is my offer for that position. And I was so floored. I was like, there's no way, like, this cannot be real. When I would tell my friends that they had checked my references or whatever, they're like, oh, that means you got it. And I was like, no, like, I didn't get it. Like, they're just doing this for everyone. I don't know, I was just like in shock a little bit. Like, I was so excited, but I didn't have the huge emotional reaction that I thought I might, just because I had been looking forward to this for so long. And I was like texting my friends even before I responded to the email. There's still some things I want to talk about with them that I expected to ask in the next interview. Because this position is based in Washington, D.C. So I had kind of like floated the idea in the first interview about potentially being remote at the start and then moving later when my lease was up, like working with them on some sort of remote flexibility, and they were open to it. So I responded and I was like, thank you so much. This is so exciting. I still would like to talk about this remote work setup before agreeing to anything. And I had a phone call the next day with one of the gals who was in the interview. She was so understanding and flexible about the situation, and she said, oh, of course, like, I had suggested in the email, like, maybe I come down to DC every other week or something like that initially, until I move. And she said, you don't even need to do that much. Like, maybe we can schedule a time where we have an all staff meeting that you can come just like the first couple weeks and meet everyone, get your laptop, and then after that, like with the holidays and everything, there's not really as much of a need for you to be in the office. You can just be remote. And then once January comes and it's the new year, my lease is up, then I can be down there more. We also talked about a couple other things that I had just, you know, wanted to ask about before. And then I was like, okay, I accept. And it was so refreshing because she was just as excited as I was. And I don't know, like I said, like, I've been in this scarcity mindset of like, no one wants me, no one will hire me, I'm not good enough for any of these jobs that I think that I am qualified for, whatever. And just hearing like her excitement, she said, we've been looking for someone for so long, and we just knew like once we met you that you were the right fit, and we were so excited about your background, and we just think you're gonna be such a tremendous asset to our team, and all this stuff like that I just hadn't thought about myself because I had been so self-critical through so much rejection. But I was like, wow, they actually want me as much as I want to be there. And it just felt right. It felt like all of this waiting through the ups and downs really was worth something. And this, again, is such a perfect role that didn't exist a year ago when I started looking, that perfectly integrates my interests. And also, it was funny, now I'm rambling again. It was also funny because they asked for my writing samples, and I sent them a few different pieces of writing just for like different audiences so they could get more of a broad sense of my writing. And one of the pieces that I wrote included some background, and it was the one, it was for one of the events that I did that worked on these specific issues. And both of the researchers who had interviewed me in this, I had used as references in this background paper that I wrote. which is so funny looking back because like I didn't know who they were, but now I'm going to be working with them. And it's just like a crazy full circle moment, like kind of one of those, it feels a little bit invisible stringy to me. But again, it is kind of like a smaller sector that people aren't bringing together these issues as much as I think they should. So this is a very well-regarded research institute that, again, I've read their work, I've referenced their work in my own work, and I just think it'll be such a great opportunity for me to do something where I'm in more of like an academic research setting, but I'm still able to do the policy advocacy that I've done in the past and that I love and that I think I'd like to think I'm good at. So that was a lot. It was probably, I don't think my story was very linear, so hopefully my editing made it somewhat easy to follow, but that is how we got here. And now it's been a couple weeks since then, and I've been planning and figuring things out with them. I had my phone call and they sent over the official offer letter. I signed it, administrative work, background check, just getting everything cleared, paperwork, prepping to start on October 30th, which is so soon. So now I'm in my last 2 weeks of being a full-time content creator, God bless, and this job is full-time. It is not a contract, it is no end date, permanent position with benefits, which sounds like silly probably to most people because I feel like most industries that's the standard, most private companies that's the standard, but really all of my jobs have been contract fixed term positions in the past, and it's just such a relief to know that I'm not going to automatically have to do this job searching process all over again in a year when my next contract's up. I mean, it still is like funding dependent, so who knows? I don't want to eat my words. The elephant in the room is that I am going to be moving. I'm leaving New York. That's so weird to say out loud too, because I don't know. I just feel like I don't know exactly when this whole thing is going to feel real. I think it'll feel real once I start the job, even though I'm starting remotely. It's going to be very hard to leave my friends. It's going to be very hard to leave New York. I'm obsessed with New York City, you guys know. I never shut up about it. It's like more of a main character in my videos and content than I am. But at the same time, like I said earlier, I just had this gut feeling that, not that my time was up, like who knows, maybe one day I'll be back here. But I just feel like this is the right move for me now. And I also love DC, I've lived there before. When I moved here, being in New York was my first priority. And right now it's not. Like progressing my career and taking this opportunity is my first priority. And while moving isn't easy and leaving people and places that you love is not easy, I think it is the right move for me right now, and I definitely plan to come back here all the time. A lot of the work I'm going to be doing is still UN focused advocacy, so I'm sure I'll be back. And I'm getting to shape kind of the agenda of what events, engagements, meetings that we're working on, and I can push for more New York things. I know a lot of people loved my DC content when I lived there and were kind of bummed when I went to New York. So if you're one of those people and you've been watching since then, we're going back. But yeah, I'm in such a different place and phase of my life than I was when I left. And also DC, I think, has changed a lot. Like I've visited once or twice. Even just looking at the map, like I've tentatively looked at apartments online, and there's so much new business and landscape and buildings in Arlington even. I'm kind of looking to move back to Arlington, Virginia, which is where I lived when I was in grad school, because I'm gonna be commuting to Georgetown. And honestly, I feel like Rosslyn, like North Arlington, is easier to get to Georgetown than a lot of DC is. A lot of things are still up in the air. I'm not dead set on that, but I'm kind of leaning towards it. I really liked Arlington. It's still really easy to get into the city. You can get more for your money, I think. So yeah, get excited for moving content, get excited for work week in my life content, literally like next week, because that's when I'm starting. I'm vlogging. I started vlogging this week already, and I'll be vlogging next week, like my last 2 weeks before starting, preparing. I just can't believe that this chapter is coming to a close. Like, it's been a long road. It's been really hard, the whole job search process. I'm really, really thankful to everyone who's like stuck by me and watched my content still. Like, I just don't think I'm as proud of the content that I've been making, because I want to make content that revolves around other work that I'm doing. I'm just so looking forward to being back and just like, I know this sounds dramatic, but like getting my personality back a little bit and feeling motivated and challenged again, and progressing in my career again and building something new, building out this new program at the Research Institute in this role. I mentioned that this role is brand new, but also like this entire program is brand new, so it just feels even more like serendipitous, honestly. Even if you've been watching my videos just to feel better about yourself, thanks for sticking by me. I hope that my content of me struggling has helped you that way. But most of all, I just really hope that this has made you feel less alone if you're in this boat, if you've been searching for a job, whether you were laid off a month ago and you have 5 interviews, or you have been, you know, looking for a year plus and feel like it's never gonna end. Like, just know that you will get to the other side. It's been a lot of ups and downs, and I just really want to normalize that. And I know it made me feel better when I would like come across TikToks of people who said that they applied to so many things, and I just feel like everyone's experience deserves to be validated, because there's so many millions of billions of broad ranges of experience when it comes to life, and also more niche job searching and rejection, and just different industries that have different competition. I was interviewing for roles that I was fully qualified for, that I thought would have been an easy get, and then when I would follow up, they gave it to someone else who had 10 years of experience when they required 3 for the role, and that had worked abroad in development in conflict-affected countries for 6 years. That just wasn't necessary for the position, but the competitive market just pushed it that way anyway. And I have some friends that, you know, every job they've applied for, maybe not every job they've applied for, but every job they've interviewed for, they've gotten, and it's just been that easy for them, and I love that for them. That's a valid experience, but I want to kind of like give a voice to the people who just did not have that experience in their job searching life, and it does not reflect on you. Just keep going, just keep trying. Yes, the definition of doing something over and over again with expecting different results is madness, but it's also success when you find the right thing. Maybe that means widening your search. For me, it was looking outside of New York City, as much as it pained me initially, and it worked for me, and I found something, and I'm so excited about it, and I'm so excited to start. So yeah, this has been a long-winded blah 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 mess probably of rambling, but I just had so much that I was like holding back, that I wanted to share everything, and I don't even think I covered everything. Just when it seems like you finally just want to give up, it honestly is that freaking diamond meme where it's like the guy that they're mining, like one's on top of the other. I've used this before. And then one has finally just like turned around and the other one's still going, and the diamond is right there, but you can't see it. You just have to have faith. Like, there's no other option besides telling yourself that you are just around the corner and you have to keep going, and just keep throwing things at the wall, keep putting yourself out there. Yes, it sucks and it stings when it doesn't work out, but when it does, it feels so worth it. So again, these are all things that are easier said than done, and I would hear this and I would say this throughout the process, and I've come to so many of these points of like, this is like finally rock bottom, where when I really hit rock bottom in September, the right thing was actually right around the corner. So anyone who sent me DMs along the way saying that they're going through the same thing, and it really helps to like hear my perspective and everything, like I do really appreciate that, because sometimes I know that this process is incredibly isolating and it feels like you're the only one struggling with this, but that's just not the case. So yeah, I'm starting remotely. I think I'm gonna be commuting down to DC at some point in November to get my laptop, to meet the team in person, just to work out any like in-person onboarding aspects. I haven't decided how I'm gonna do it in terms of like if I'm gonna stay the night there, or if I'm just gonna try and do the full super commute all in one day and take the train down like super early in the morning. But stay tuned for that. That'll be fun content, me going from New York to DC for one work day. Work outfits and everything. Again, I'm gonna be pretty remote to begin with, but once I'm in DC, I am gonna be going to the office twice a week because it's a hybrid position. Yeah, I hope I covered everything. I know it was a lot of rambling, but I just have so many thoughts about this whole process. I feel like I could do an entire podcast episode just like what the last year of searching for a new job has taught me. I love you guys so much. I appreciate your support and your love and your, you know, encouraging messages that I've received, and it just means the world. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're not already. Check out my TikTok. I'm going to be posting like TikToks and content on there. Instagram stories will be more in real time when I start my job and everything. And I'll probably do, because I wanted to make this the announcement and I haven't said anything publicly yet, I haven't been able to like collect questions or anything for a Q&A, but maybe in a future vlog I'll do like an Instagram Q&A and incorporate answering some of your questions if you have any about this whole shindig or the new role or anything. So love you guys so much. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I'm gonna have a job.